Hi, friends. I'm Jennifer with Triangle Wellness with Jennifer, and I'm going to talk to you about yoga today. So, this is kind of a yoga 101. It occurred to me that some of you might not know much about yoga or are very confused about yoga. And so, one thing that I thought it might be nice to do is to kind of explain some things in a video, because if some of you have never been in a yoga class, or if you have been in a yoga class and you've thought, what is going on? What is this? I don't understand. They're doing all this movement. It's going too fast. I don't understand what I'm supposed to do. You're looking around watching other people. Um, I want to foster a love for yoga and for you to be comfortable trying yoga, so that if you ever come to a class that I teach in person or that any teacher teaches in person, you're going to have a little familiarity with what is going on in the class. So there are all different types of yoga. Um, I specialize in vinyasa yoga mainly. I also practice yin and can teach yin. I'll talk a little bit about that at the end, but vinyasa yoga is what I'm passionate about. And so that's the kind of yoga that I intend to teach. It's more of a fast paced, getting a cardio workout type of yoga. And I'll go through what is included in a vinyasa class in a few minutes so that you kind of know. But I'm going to focus mostly on talking about a vinyasa class. That's generally what I find that is most popular around the area, with the exception of some yin, restorative, those classes are taught too. But some tips. If you go into a yoga class, do not compare yourself to others. Don't look around and think, oh my gosh, they're folding all the way over their legs and, I can't do that. My body is only going to go this far. That's fine if your body only goes that far. Yoga is about you feeling in your body what is appropriate for you with where you are. Over time, if you practice yoga, you're going to find that you're going to develop a little bit more flexibility, maybe a lot more flexibility, um, and a lot of strength. So don't worry with where you are now. Be where you are now. Be comfortable with where you are now. Yoga is for every body type, and there are so many different body types, and what's going to work in somebody else's body may not work in your body. That's certainly true for me as well. I know where my body is structured a little bit different than other people, and what I'm going to be able to do and what I'm not going to be able to do. So that's fine. It's okay if you can't do it all. The great thing about yoga is that there are so many different modifications, props, and tools that we can use. And I'm going to show you some of those today in case you're interested in doing yoga and you want to be prepared of things that you can do to make your experience better. I would never want you to go into a yoga class and think, oh my gosh, that was terrible. I didn't enjoy it because I couldn't do any of it and I didn't know how to modify anything. So I'm going to do a series of videos that kind of talk about certain components that I think are basic foundational things that you need to know, that would help you if you go to a yoga class. Um, so just to also tell you the benefits, I've talked about flexibility, building strength, toning and sculpting your body and your muscles. Um, you don't have to go into a gym and lift weights to sculpt your body. Yoga can sculpt your body. Um, and for some people, that's a little bit more comfortable than going into a gym. If you're not comfortable going into a gym and the weights are intimidating, this might be a good step if you're trying to move in the direction of doing something healthy in the form of physical activity for your body. So I find that this is a little not as scary to some people. It also releases tension, anxiety, stress. It can help improve your sleep and your mood. And it can also help with pain relief. So if you do suffer from arthritis, or if you suffer from sciatica, tight hips, tight hamstrings, it can definitely help with that. So I would encourage you to try things. I'm going to be putting some tidbit videos. I've already posted at least one on that, are going to be geared they're just short sequences. It's not really a full yoga class. They're just sequences that are going to be targeted for certain areas. And those short videos are going to include both yoga poses as well as some things that are just general exercises. They're not yoga specific. But I'm trying to design some things to help people, specifically people who reach out to me and say, I'm having trouble with my low back. I'm having trouble with my knees. I'm having trouble with my hips. Can you recommend something? So those short videos are going to be designed to help specific areas. There's still good videos to try if you want to get a taste of yoga and what some yoga poses are like. It will definitely include yoga poses, but it's not a full like yoga class. So I want to make sure that I explain that to everybody and not give some kind of misconception. Vinyasa classes are going to be more of a traditional yoga class. Generally 60 minutes, sometimes 45. It's hard to do anything less than 45 minutes for a vinyasa class because there's a class structure to it. So in a yoga class, if you go in, there's going to be a warm-up section. The warm-up is usually going to consist of a combination of yoga poses and also some strengthening that might not be yoga poses. They might be other types of exercises or whatever that are designed to help strengthen your body in certain areas, usually geared toward whatever you're going to be working toward in that class. At least a good teacher will structure it that way. So if I know that I'm going to teach a class that's going to include poses where my hips need to be open, then I'm going to design my warm-up to focus on hip opening poses to get your body prepped and ready for what's coming. The second section in a vinyasa class is going to be a sun salutation section. I'm going to do another video that talks about what is a sun salutation. But for now, I'm just going to tell you the purpose of that section is to start to build energy, to prep the body, get your body moving. It starts out maybe a little slower and then gets a little quicker paced. You go through several sequences of it. And it is also designed to prep your body for what is coming up in the next section of class. It also is a very important part of the class in terms of helping you connect your breath to your movement. So in yoga, you're going to have a movement that connects to an inhale and a movement that connects to an exhale typically. So the sun salutation section sets you up for that and helps you understand I'm supposed to inhale here. I'm supposed to exhale here. So it helps with that. The next section is going to be the standing sequence. So you're going to work through a sequence that the teacher has designed. Again, it usually has some type of focus, just depending on what is coming later in the class. But they're going to work you through that standing sequence. It usually is several rounds. And when I say a round of poses is you do the round with your right side, and then you do your left side, and that's a round. So a round right and left. And then the second round usually has a set of poses and it builds. So like in your first round, you might have 3 to 4 poses. In the second round, you will have those same 3 to 4 poses in the same order, and then you're going to add on. So you're going to progressively add on so that as you're going through the standing sequence, however many rounds that the teacher has, you're going to keep building on what you've already done. So your body's going to start to know, okay, I know what's coming. I've done this, and this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. So you become more comfortable with it. And then once you get through that standing sequence, there's usually a component of balance. So you're going to do some one-legged type poses, some things that challenge where your balance is. That sometimes is scary to people, but again, there's lots of modifications and it helps build strength in your body. The fifth section, and so this is where it starts to get a little bit just dependent on the teacher. Sometimes teachers pick up a peak pose. I like to do that. So I like to work towards a specific peak pose that I know people generally are going to want to learn or work up to. So you will work through your balance section, then you work your peak pose. And that's generally the really instructional part of the class. That's where you're going to get things really broken down. So for example, maybe I wanted to teach full wheel, which is a back bend. So things in my sequence going up to that are going to help prep my body to do a back bend. And then when I get to that peak section, I'm going to really stop and really teach how you do wheel pose and what things you can do to modify wheel pose. The next section, it's kind of funny. I used back bend as an example. There generally is also some type of back bend in a class. A lot of times it will come in to a section like after you've done balance or whatever, and it just depends. But there's all different kinds of even small back bends. So there may or may not be a specific back bend section, but you'll have some type of back bend in your class. And then you're going to do a cool down, and then finally you're going to end in Shavasana. Shavasana is what everybody knows as corpse pose, where you're just laying, and it's probably the most important part of the class, because that's when you allow your body to relax and really come to full realization of what your body has worked through during the class. You let all of that sink in, and it's just a very enjoyable moment to come down from your practice and to get your mind cleared. So that's the typical structure of a vinyasa class. So I mentioned that there are props that you can use if there are poses that are that where you're unable to get, what I hate to say, fully into a pose, because I don't really think that's correct. I think everybody's body is different, and you get into the pose where you get into the pose. However, there are things that help along the way. So if you're interested in getting into yoga, I want to just point out a couple of things that are very helpful. A set of yoga blocks. These are cork, and everything that I'm going to show you today, you can find on Amazon. That's where I buy a lot of my stuff. These are cork. The reason I have another set of blocks, I don't have them with me right now, but they're foam, so they're softer. Those will work for most everything that you would need them for. These cork ones are a little sturdier. Some of you may or may not know I do a lot of arm balancing and inversions. So to do that type of work, really the cork has more stability, so that I have both sets. But a set of the foam ones will do too. They can help. These are used a lot in restorative and yin classes, but also they really help when you need to be, when you need to bring the ground closer to you. A block is great, and you can use them flat like this. You can use them on which is the lowest setting. You can use them on a medium setting or a high setting. So a very versatile prop that is used a lot in yoga. Wanted to mention this. If you don't have yoga blocks and you're primarily doing this at home, a stack of books will work too. So you don't have to buy stuff if you don't have it. Stack some books up and use some books if you're at home. A strap. This one is an actual yoga strap, but you can use a belt, a scarf, anything that you have on hand you can use. This helps with a lot of like shoulder type things. If your shoulders are tight and you can't reach or whatever, or sometimes if you're doing poses where you can't reach your feet and you're trying to reach in the direction of your feet, you can use the strap. Can be a very helpful prop too for a lot of different poses. And let me say this, there is no shame in the prop game. Use props. I use props. Use props. Don't think that there's anything less about using a prop. You're still doing the pose. You still are 100% doing the pose. But if you need, and some days you might need a prop, and then some days you may not need a prop. There are days where I might need something, and other days my flexibility is better. Everybody has a bad day too. Maybe it's just not a good balanced day for you, and you need a little extra support. I should mention too that in balance portions of the class, there's generally going to be a wall that you can use if you need to use a wall. I use walls all the time in my practice. So another thing to have on hand is a blanket. And again, it can be any type of blanket, but if you have a hard time, like even sitting cross-legged like I'm sitting right now. I know for some people that's just really not the most comfortable pose to be in. You can use a blanket to help elevate. Simply putting it under your bottom lifts you and makes sitting in this pose a lot easier for a lot of people. There are other reasons to use blankets too. Perhaps you have sensitive knees. There are things that we can do with blankets to help alleviate that. There are other poses where you might need it behind your head. So again, it doesn't have to be any kind of special blanket, but sometimes people like to use multiple blankets for certain things. So having a blanket on hand is good. This is a yoga bolster. Now this one admittedly is youth size because I am a small statured person. So they do make these in various sizes. These are good for a lot of restorative poses as well, but also can be very helpful if you have lower back issues and you need something under your back. You can always use a block. You can use a blanket. If you need a little bit more, a bolster is another good prop to use. Also under the knees, if you're laying down and that's an uncomfortable thing for you, you can slide a bolster or a blanket underneath the knees. That brings me to one other thing I want to talk about, and that's just yoga mats in general. My mat is a rubber mat, and it's thicker, which is good if you do have sensitive knees. I have several yoga mats. One mat that I have that is great for people who do need a little bit more cushion, like if your knees are extra bony or just sensitive and you like to have a little bit more cushion. It is cushiony, but I find that it's hard to grip. So if you're doing things with your hands, it's sometimes your hands want to slide, and I don't care for that. So I use it for certain things, and this is the one I use mostly. But this is a rubber-based mat. I love this one too because I don't know if you can see it in the video or not, but there are markings on this mat. So there are alignment markings. So if you're learning, how to align your feet properly and things like that, they do make mats that have the alignment points on them. If that's important to you or if it's, something you wanted to look at. Also, I don't know if you can tell, but the room that I'm in right now has carpet. And carpet is really hard. You can put a yoga mat on top of carpet and do it, but I don't like how that feels at all. So this is a piece of plywood that my hubby bought for me and fixed so that it is the length of my mat, and I can put my mat on top of this on carpet, and it's just like I was on hardwood floor. So that's if you have that issue in your home, you don't have anywhere where it's hard floors, and you're finding that it's difficult for you to do anything with the carpet, that's a solution for that. If you do have sensitive knees, another thing that you can do is in poses when, like hands and knees, if that's very sensitive for you, you can always take your mat and just roll it over and double it up and use it like that. And then when it's time to come out of that pose, you can just flip it back over. That's something that helps a lot of people as well. I mentioned knees in particular because I get that a lot from people. It's like, oh, I can't do it. It's too hard on my knees. There are things that we can do in yoga to help your knees. And when I teach classes, I always want to try to make sure that I point out things to really make sure that you're being safe and taking care in your body to not hurt yourself. That's important to me. I try to make sure that when I know there are specific things that you need to know so that you don't get injured, I'm going to make sure that I stop and make the time to explain that and point that out. Let's see. So I talked about classes. Again, I am striving to do some full classes that I will post. I'm also planning to teach in person, but like I said, I will be putting the short targeted videos on for you all. If there's something specific that you would like to see something on, message me, contact me, and I'll be happy to help you if I can. Again, I want to teach vinyasa classes, so I'm working to find a place to teach that right now, and quite possibly yin classes. Yin classes are more relaxed, slower paced, It's where you hold poses for a longer period of time. That's sometimes very difficult for people to hold. It's meant to target the deep tissues, the connective tissues in your body, and to help those release. It's great for um, restoring your body after you've worked out a lot during the week, or if you want to increase flexibility, it's a great way to do that. So that's another type of yoga that I'm likely to teach or do some sequences on as well. I also hope eventually to do some workshops where I might work up to an arm balance or an inversion if that's something that interests people. Again, that is an advanced form of yoga. Some people may or may not be interested in that, but you know, I know that certain people have watched me do arm balancing and inversions on videos on my personal Facebook page. And I don't want to give the impression that that's all I'm about or all I want to teach, because I am very passionate about teaching the yoga class and what that can do for your body, what it can do for your mind. Um, I love it. I'm very passionate about it. I hope to share it with you. So, in some future videos, I'm going to do like a yoga one on one series where I, again, break down some of the important pieces for you so that you become comfortable should you want to give it a try. And again, please reach out with any questions, comments. You can drop them in the comments. You can send me a message. Um, but please reach out to me if there's anything I can do. And again, thank you so much for taking time to listen to me today. Let me come into your home and explain a few things about yoga and share my thoughts with you. And I hope that you have a great rest of your evening.